Need a mic?
know. I mean, you're here.
I'm just, yeah.
Are you okay with doing that?
Yeah, I'll just hang out.
Be a diva.
Yeah. Diva lost.
People sometimes, I have diva lost tattooed on my knuckles, and people sometimes think it says diva boss. I really don't relate to that. Except sometimes.
Yeah, I like the first one better.
I'm going to read a piece called Dissipation Hour, with apologies to Robert Arnold, who's heard it before. And, okay, it's going to take me 2 seconds to find. Okay, there we go. I can hold it, actually. Yeah, I'm good. I'm really not.
Have a rest.
But you're diva boss.
Feeling maudlin after 2 cocktails, I called my ex-boyfriend in Santa Rosa. I had a biopsy today, I told him. I wasn't going to call you until I knew it was cancer, because I knew you'd think I was being dramatic. But you know what? It was kind of dramatic. I went into a room and there was a table that raises and lowers and has a hole in the middle, and I had to lay on the table and put my breast through the hole, and they slammed it between 2 sheets of glass and told me to be absolutely still while they put a needle through my breast and sucked out tissue samples. They told me, I don't know why they told me this, that the samples were about 1 inch long and and the thickness of angel hair pasta. The technician was a woman about my age, and she would tell me when to breathe and when to hold my breath, and her voice when she said, "Do not breathe," was like a song, but not a pretty song, just sound without meaning, like any repeated phrase, ATM or credit, or paper or plastic. I had begun to dislike her the moment I met her, but that song really clinched it. It's not like I wanted to breathe. The air in doctors' offices always tastes particularly poisonous, all that plastic medical equipment off-gassing in a windowless environment. After not moving except for taking little sips of toxic air for 45 minutes, my body was angrier than ever. Every now and then the technician would lay her hand on my back, and whether I hated her or not, this was the only thing that calmed me. But I couldn't ask her to do that the whole time. She had other things to do. I couldn't move, and my neck felt like it might snap, and my right arm broke off and sailed away on a splintered raft, and I thought, oh well, it no longer belongs to me. So if it moves, it's not my fault. And I concentrated on the fingers and toes I could still feel, allowing them to tense and relax ever so slightly, because something has to move. It's impossible to lie absolutely still unless you are dead. I pretended to be a soldier lying on a battlefield, face in the mud, my life depending on playing dead, waiting for the enemy to evaporate into history. It reminded me of childhood. Suck it up, lie still, cry later. I told myself that when I got to move again, I would be free, and I would treat myself to a 6-course meal, and I would suck the marrow from the tiny bones of creatures less fortunate than myself. By the end of the hour, I had perfected a new way of sobbing, motionless and without tears. I can't tell you what he said in response, because I didn't actually call him. I'm smarter than that now. I became a writer, so I didn't have to talk to people. He wasn't crazy about that aspect of my character, so I tried to change, but haha, that's all over now. And I am, at the moment, bereft of the kind of imagination that could fill in his half of the conversation. Instead, I went to a supper club we used to go to, and I had 4 appetizers and 2 mint juleps for the price of 1 because it was happy hour, which should be called dissipation hour. The hour when day abandons us to the night, and however we see fit to get through the transition is fine, but I don't think it should be called happy. I remember when I was 21 and a waitress, and women would come into the diner alone on their lunch breaks and cry into their salads. I remember one red-haired meter maid in particular who I tried to give free food to. I felt so sorry for her, but she refused it. Luckily, the supper club is dark, and no one cares to look too closely at the face of the woman dining alone in the window. She has brought a book but does not read it. She watches the people passing on the sidewalk but doesn't see them. Her mind is like a daguerreotype shutter and can only see someone if he stands completely still for the required length of exposure, like the first man ever captured on film stood still on a Paris street while a blurred figure shined his boots. She waits for the alcohol to make her happier or sadder or both. She thinks about some recent criticisms she received. "Learn to drive," one man shouted out his window for no reason she could discern. And the day before at work, she had cut a piece of cheese down into 2 cute little wedges and placed them on top of the stack to entice cheapskate buyers like herself. And her coworker took them off the display and said, "This is just awful." She thinks about the moon, which is no longer full, and about the hematoma, which is dripping blood into her bandage, and the ice pack tucked into her bra, which is now soft and warm and useless. And she thinks about the rust spots on her car, and whether to trust a product which says it will take care of them and prevent their spreading. She thinks about 2 different men she has plans with, or plans to make plans with, and wonders if anything will come of either of them. One of them is very serious, recently divorced, a tall gray mouse. The other, smiling and robust, practically a backslapper. Often this is the case, that she knows 2 men quite opposite in their aspect, who cobbled together might make the perfect man for her, but on their own, each comes up lacking in some essential area, like sexual imagination or appreciation of good grammar. Near the exit, a child wails in his stroller next to a booth in which 2 women gulp down cocktails. One of the women, presumably the mother, dangles a toy in front of him and he swats it away, inconsolable. Reeling by on her way out of the supper club, our heroine leans toward him. "Honey, I know. This world is a pitiful place." The child looks up at her tear-ravaged face and is momentarily stunned into silence. The looks on the faces of the women in the booth are enough to drive a giddiness into her heart as she hits the sidewalk, dives into its flow. "Miss! Miss!" She is almost to the corner when a young man races to catch up with her. It's the waiter from the restaurant. She left her phone on the table. "Oh, thank you. And thank you for calling me Miss. God, I remember when people started calling me ma'am, and I wanted to say, oh God, please don't call me ma'am, at least until I've had my first mammogram." The waiter backs away in restrained horror and is folded into the crowd. Clearly she is drunk, and there is nothing to do but get into bed with a fresh ice pack and a Percocet. But the world is so much bigger than she is, and the night is warmer than she thought, so instead she keeps walking. She walks past her apartment door and leaves the crowded streets of her neighborhood, walks up hills and under overpasses to the very edge of the city, where pollution foams at the pilings and tires burn in rings and squirrels attempt to breed with rats to increase their genetic odds and lose their laughable fluffy tails. The moon hovered over the bay, a malformed breast. She talked to it like she had since she was a child, a stupid child who made wishes on everything. Stars, numbers, eyelashes, sailboats, birthdays. No, a smart child who squandered her smarts on frivolous girl fantasies, dreams of being rescued, of being pretty and loved with a closet full of nice clothes. What now, moon? I've spent too long looking for signs and wonders. I've done vain and questionable things. And the moon said what it always said. It said, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. You're good. Now go home. Thank you.